So I done a post on, fathers who abandoned their children yesterday, and I have a comment that I'd like to respond to. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. This commenter says, my dad did this. Him and my mom were heavily on drugs and had us back to back. We went to foster care. Years later, he got cleaned up and got married. And when the people called him to get us out of foster care, he didn't want us. So selfish he was, a part of ruining our lives, and was too cowardly to face his past. I'm sorry to hear that. And I wish that I could say that your story is not common, but unfortunately, having worked with children in group homes and even just, seeing foster care records over the years, one thing I remember just from working with kids is that, the at least where I worked in the system, made a lot of attempts to reunify children with their parents. And the children would just, they were just so eager for a phone call with their parents, regardless of what went on in the abusive situation. In most cases, even if children were left, because sometimes children are left in apartments or homes or things like that when families move out, all kinds of situations. But they desperately would want that connection with their parents. And they were hopeful that their parents wanted them and were ready to change or had cleaned up like your parents did, gotten sober and things like that. So they're just waiting for that chance. And so they would wait for that phone call, and they would wait for that weekend visit. I mean, they would have their clothes packed early because they were just so eager with excitement. They were ready to get out of the system. They would anxiously wait to be reunified with their parent. And parents would lead them on, make empty promises over the phone, and they don't show up for their children. And even when children are in foster care, having seen some of that, there's so many efforts to reunify. I mean, and depending on where you're at, I mean, I've seen, agencies give car vouchers so that they can take cabs and, all kinds of offer counseling, pay for all kinds of stuff to try to get it to happen. The parents are just like, no, to come to court, come to the reunification hearing, just let's do therapy, parenting classes and things like that. They don't want to do it. And they just, they say, you know what? I don't want to go through that anymore, or go through that at all, really. And I'm kind of done with that. I'm going to move on with my life. And it's so devastating to children on the receiving end of that. And unfortunately, a lot of children, they may age out of the system. Some of them cling to denial. So they feel like, the court didn't make enough effort. And, so they kind of come up with these narratives for their parents. They don't readily believe, even after therapy and whatnot, they don't believe that their parents didn't make an attempt, or that the system wasn't against them somehow. So they rather blame the system. And a lot of them, they may spend time trying to reunify with their parents themselves once they age out of the system. So it's not uncommon for children to chase down parents who left them. This is also a phenomenon that we've seen with a lot of celebrities too. Hey, I got some money. Let me go find my daddy. I remember this was a big thing, like with Chile, and back in the 90s, there was that was like televised. So, there's lots of people that I've seen do this on reality shows where their parents have kind of left or given them up for adoption or just kind of moved on, after that, and they've tried to go out and find and try to rebuild a relationship. So even this happens quite a bit with non-celebrities, just regular people that really long for their parents, regular kids who didn't have a good life or were just raised in the system, and they want some crumbs of family. They want some sort of hope out there that somebody loves them and cares for them and wants to be connected with them. They don't want to go through the world alone, or believing that their family was okay with relinquishing care and not turning back, and not trying to stay connected even when given opportunities and things like that to do so. It's unfortunate, and again, I'm sorry for everybody that happens to, but this is a frequent story. The juvenile system is filled with kiddos, foster care. Prison is also filled with adult children at that point who have gone through this, and that really kind of messes with a young person's psyche. It's a scar that for a lot of them it doesn't heal, and it leads to anger, it leads to frustration, it leads to troubled relationship, because a lot of people, they get, even boys, girls and boys, they get stuck in this loop of chasing daddy, chasing mommy, chasing daddy. So they look for that in every relationship that they're in unconsciously. And a lot of times we end up, sort of replacing our parents with similar characters in our life when we've been abandoned. And so we may continue to experience abandonment and rejection in our adult relationships, through affairs, our partner walking out on us, betraying us in some way, a partner that might be there physically but not there emotionally, so they're not trying to make an effort in relationships. Or we may chase after fixer-uppers, people that are on drugs or have other challenges that we feel like we can help and nurse them back to life, and we'll have a happy ending, that kind of stuff. So, so that's how that can manifest. But thanks so much for putting this. I appreciate this comment. And thanks for your transparency, but you're speaking to what I know a lot of people have gone through. So like to let me know what you guys think. Like, comment, follow, and share. Thanks so much.